On a freezing, moonless night in northeastern Utah's Uinta Basin, an unexpected alarm shattered the silence inside the command center at Skinwalker Ranch. High-frequency RF spectrum analyzers, set to monitor the valley's ambient electromagnetic backdrop, suddenly slammed into absolute saturation. A dense, highly structured transmission was surging directly through the airwaves, radiating at precisely 1.6 gigahertz, the exact frequency band globally reserved for deep space satellite telemetry and military satellite communication. But this signal wasn't coming down from an orbiting satellite, nor was it broadcasting from a nearby military installation. Directional radio frequency tracking arrays pinpointed the origin point with chilling accuracy. The transmission was emanating from deep inside solid, unbroken sandstone, buried hundreds of feet beneath the surface of the Mesa. For Dr. Travis Taylor, an astrophysicist and optical scientist with decades of high-level work across aerospace and defense sectors, this moment shattered every rational expectation he had brought to the ranch. Having joined the investigation with a healthy degree of scientific skepticism, Taylor was accustomed to explaining away anomalous events through standard physics, atmospheric optics, or equipment calibration errors. Yet, as he watched the wideband receiver track a complex, repeating mathematical signature bursting out of solid rock, the boundaries of known geology began to collapse. Natural sandstone does not generate radio signals. It does not modulate high-frequency microwaves, nor does it react to human presence. But the Mesa was doing all three. Rising over 500 feet above the ranch floor, the Mesa is a terrifying geological mystery, a massive, weathered cliff of red rock and dark shale that has stood guard over the Uinta Basin for millennia. For generations, local Ute traditions held that the ridge was a forbidden boundary, a place where dark forces dwelled and where the veil between worlds wore thin. Early homesteaders and modern researchers alike documented bizarre phenomena along its base: unexplained lightcraft vanishing directly into the cliff wall, sudden localized gravity drops, and an overpowering sense of dread experienced by anyone who ventured too close to its shadow. Determined to move past speculation and replace folklore with empirical data, Dr. Taylor and Chief Scientist Eric Bard initiated a comprehensive multi-sensor diagnostic initiative targeted specifically at the Mesa's central structural mass. They deployed wideband thermal cameras, high-density seismic arrays, and custom-built ground-penetrating radar units capable of mapping subterranean voids down to unprecedented depths. What they expected to find was a dense matrix of solid sandstone layered over ancient clay and shale. What the instruments actually returned left the scientific team frozen in disbelief. The ground-penetrating radar sweeps consistently failed to penetrate specific zones within the Mesa face, deflecting off an invisible barrier as if striking solid metal. Simultaneously, multispectral thermal imaging revealed a startling thermodynamic anomaly. While the outer sunbaked sandstone measured well over 90 degrees Fahrenheit, isolated patches along the mid-tier ridge plunged to sub-zero temperatures within fractions of an inch. There was no gradual thermal gradient, no natural convective airflow to account for the sudden drop. Thermal energy was being rapidly drained out of the environment by a massive, concentrated heat sink hidden within the mountain. As night fell and the team prepared to launch a series of diagnostic rocket launches to probe the atmospheric column directly above the ridge, the baseline 1.6 gigahertz signal shifted again. It ceased its slow, repeating pulse and locked into a high-throughput, dynamic broadcast, matching the exact frequency of the telemetry radios on board the scientific rockets. As the first instrumented rocket roared into the night sky, reaching an altitude of 500 feet directly over the Mesa's plateau, its internal GPS system instantly lost satellite lock. Onboard accelerometers registered violent erratic spatial shifts that defied physical motion, and the live diagnostic link went dead. Standing near the pad, holding a handheld radio frequency scanner that was now screaming with interference, Dr. Travis Taylor looked up at the dark silhouette of the cliff face. The data was no longer suggesting a simple geological anomaly or a natural acoustic echo. The Mesa was behaving like an active, responsive electronic system. Deep within that wall of stone, something immense had detected their presence, intercepted their diagnostic broadcast, and begun firing back its own terrifying response into the night air. The abrupt loss of telemetry from the diagnostic rocket sent an immediate surge of tension through the field crew gathered at the base of the ridge. In the high-stakes environment of experimental physics, a single instrument failure can be written off as a loose connection or a localized power brownout. But when multiple redundant systems, hardened against electromagnetic interference and isolated on separate battery banks, simultaneously freeze, crash, or report impossible physical metrics, chance is eliminated from the equation. Inside the command center, Chief Scientist Eric Bard replayed the final seconds of recorded flight data frame by frame. The onboard spatial telemetry showed that as the rocket entered the air column 500 feet above the Mesa, the localized gravitational acceleration vector plummeted from standard Earth gravity to absolute zero within milliseconds. The instrument package hadn't simply lost signal. It had entered a localized region of distorted spacetime, where standard physics appeared to buckle under an immense external force field. Driven by the need to map the physical geometry of this invisible barrier, Dr. Travis Taylor authorized an immediate shift in tactical strategy. If remote sensing from the ground could not pierce the Mesa's interior, they would have to utilize deep penetration acoustic sounding and cosmic ray muon tomography. Muon tomography utilizes subatomic particles generated by cosmic rays colliding with the Earth's upper atmosphere. Because these high-energy particles pass through solid matter at predictable rates, measuring their attenuation as they travel through a mountain allows scientists to construct a precise, high-definition internal map, essentially giving the Mesa a subterranean X-ray. Over the course of 3 weeks, specialized detector arrays were positioned in a precise ring around the base of the ridge, silently logging billions of particle strikes as cosmic radiation filtered down through the rock. When the raw computational data was finally compiled and rendered into a three-dimensional volumetric model on the command center monitors, the atmosphere inside the trailer turned deathly quiet. Geology dictates that natural rock formations feature chaotic fracture lines, irregular fault blocks, and random porous pockets carved by ancient groundwater. The interior of the Mesa possessed none of these natural features. Embedded 200 feet inside the natural sandstone's casing sat a massive, highly organized structural anomaly. The muon tomography scans revealed a void of immense scale, a perfectly elliptical vault spanning over 300 feet across. But it was what occupied the space within that vault that defied every law of natural Earth science. Suspended in the absolute center of the subterranean vault was an ultra-dense, metallic object shaped like an elongated ellipsoid, completely isolated from the surrounding rock face. The scan showed no support structures, no foundational pillars, and no natural geological bridges holding the object in place. It hovered inside an engineered void, floating in total structural suspension. Furthermore, the muon density metrics indicated that the composition of this object was infinitely denser than the surrounding quartz sandstone, possessing a mass profile characteristic of heavy, engineered metallic alloys. As Dr. Taylor zoomed in on the digital cross-section, the spatial mapping software highlighted a series of secondary structural features radiating outward from the central vault. A network of uniform, vitrified conduits, each measuring exactly 12 feet in diameter, extended from the main chamber like arterial pathways, winding downward into the deep bedrock far below the ranch floor. These were not natural lava tubes or water channels. Their geometry was completely uniform, maintaining precise right-angle intersections and smooth internal walls that swept down into the Earth's deeper tectonic crust. The implications were as staggering as they were horrifying. The Mesa was not a solid mountain of Utah sandstone. It was an artificial shell, an ancient geological disguise constructed over a massive subterranean installation. The structural anomaly resting at its core was not a passive fossil or a buried metallic fragment from a forgotten meteor strike. The localized temperature crashes, the expulsion of magnetic fields, and the violent signal spikes observed across the property were all emanating from an active, hyperdense engine anchored inside the mountain. Standing around the glowing glow of the computational monitors, the scientific team confronted a monumental reality. Decades of bizarre events, the hovering orbs, the missing time, the unexplainable radiation spikes, were not disconnected legends or atmospheric tricks. They were operational side effects of an underground complex that had remained hidden beneath the desert soil for centuries. And now, with the preliminary tomography complete and the dimensions of the internal chamber exposed, Dr. Taylor knew there was only one logical path forward. They had to find a physical vector to breach the outer stone casing and make direct contact with the machine inside. The decision to physically breach the Mesa's natural stone casing marked a critical point of no return for the research team. Remote sensing had provided a clear, terrifying blueprint of what lay beneath, but passive observation could only yield theoretical answers. To confirm whether the subterranean ellipsoid was an active machine or an inert technological artifact, the team needed direct physical access to the vitrified conduits identified in the muon tomography scans. Bringing heavy excavation machinery onto the fragile rock-strewn slopes of the Mesa was an immense logistical nightmare. Dr. Travis Taylor and the engineering crew selected a high-torque, industrial core drilling rig, equipped with custom diamond matrix bits, internal fluid cooling channels, and real-time seismic monitoring. The target vector was chosen with mathematical precision, a deep fracture line near the eastern base of the cliff face that aligned directly with one of the primary 12-foot vitrified conduits leading toward the central vault. As the heavy diesel engine roared to life, driving the rotary drill bit into the outer layer of weathered sandstone, the team established a strict safety perimeter. Every field technician wore personal radiation dosimeters and continuous electromagnetic field monitors. For the first 30 feet, the drill bit cut steadily through standard red rock, churning up predictable plumes of crushed quartz and clay. But as the excavation reached a depth of 45 feet, approaching the exact boundary of the internal void map, the operational environment collapsed into pure chaos. Without warning, the seismic monitoring array logged a violent, localized tremor centered directly beneath the drill rig. The heavy steel drill string, capable of withstanding tens of thousands of pounds of torsional torque, began to vibrate violently with an agonizing, high-pitched metallic scream. On the control panel, the hydraulic pressure gauges spiked into the red zone, and the high-density diamond bit suddenly ground to a complete halt, seizing as if it had struck an impenetrable sheet of solid armor. Simultaneously, every electronic system within a 50-yard radius of the drilling pad experienced a catastrophic power drop. The digital displays on the core rig flickered, inverted, and went completely black. Handheld radios filled with a deafening wall of static, and the team's portable quantum magnetometers recorded a sudden, total collapse of the local magnetic field. Thermal imaging cameras trained on the borehole captured an immediate, dramatic drop in temperature. The drill string, heated to hundreds of degrees by friction just seconds prior, was instantly coated in a thick layer of white frost as the shaft temperature plunged to sub-zero levels. Dr. Travis Taylor rushed to the mouth of the drill hole with a specialized directional spectrum analyzer. The 1.6 gigahertz signal was no longer broadcasting as a distant, broad-spectrum pulse. It was emanating directly from the interior of the drill pipe itself, bursting upward from the breached shaft with absolute maximum signal amplitude. The frequency was phase-locked, carrying an intricate, rapid sequence of mathematical pulses that matched the precise operational logic of advanced digital telemetry. The Mesa was not merely resisting the drill bit through passive structural hardness. It was reacting to the physical intrusion with an active, automated defensive countermeasure. When the excavation crew carefully extracted the drill string from the shaft to inspect the damage, what they pulled out left them speechless. The heavy diamond matrix core bit, engineered to slice through reinforced steel and solid granite, had not simply dulled or cracked. The outer metallic cutting face had been completely smoothed down, melted, and vitrified, transformed into a polished, glass-like ceramic surface that mirrored the internal lining of the subterranean conduits mapped by the tomography scans. The team stepped back from the excavation site in profound shock. The barrier concealed within the Mesa possessed a structural integrity and a thermal dissipation capability far beyond any material known to modern industrial engineering. It was an active defensive casing, designed to absorb kinetic force, neutralize mechanical intrusion, and instantly melt surrounding silica into a protective ceramic shield. The subterranean installation was wide awake, fully energized, and actively defending its internal vault from human discovery. The physical destruction of the industrial drill bit made one reality painfully clear. Forced mechanical excavation through the outer barrier was impossible. The subterranean installation possessed an active reactive defense system that transformed kinetic friction directly into thermal ceramic shielding. If Dr. Travis Taylor and the scientific team were going to uncover what lay inside the central vault, they had to abandon brute force and utilize sophisticated, non-invasive diagnostic probes capable of penetrating the vitrified conduit without triggering an explosive energetic response. The team reassessed their tactical plan inside the command center, shifting from physical drilling to high-frequency electromagnetic and acoustic resonance probing. If the 1.6 gigahertz signal emanating from the Mesa was an active telemetric data stream, it meant the system inside was constantly sampling its external environment. Instead of trying to break through the wall, Dr. Taylor proposed sending an ultra-low-power, structured electromagnetic pulse down the newly opened 45-foot shaft, using the vitrified conduit as a natural waveguide to carry diagnostic signals directly into the central vault. To execute this, Chief Scientist Eric Bard engineered a specialized microprobe array equipped with atomic clock synchronization, vector magnetometers, and a miniaturized LiDAR scanner. The probe was mounted onto a fiber optic tether capable of transmitting gigabits of raw spatial data per second without introducing conductive copper wiring that might draw an electrical arc from the subterranean core. As night fell over the Uinta Basin, the team slowly lowered the glass-sheathed probe into the frosty, vitrified borehole, tracking its descent inch by inch on the high-definition diagnostic monitors. At a depth of exactly 48 feet, the optical camera on the probe passed the threshold where the drill bit had seized. The view displayed on the command center screens was breathtaking. The rugged hand-drilled sandstone wall abruptly ended, giving way to a flawless, perfectly cylindrical shaft lined with a deep, iridescent black ceramic glass. The internal walls of this conduit were completely smooth, free of any tool marks, seams, or structural degradation. The fiber optic lighting from the probe reflected off the curved walls with incredible clarity, showing a conduit that looked as fresh as if it had been sealed hours ago, rather than remaining buried for centuries beneath the desert bedrock. As the probe descended deeper into the dark conduit, reaching a depth of 120 feet, the onboard environmental telemetry began to register impossible physical dynamics. The ambient temperature inside the vitrified tube remained locked at -15 degrees Fahrenheit, yet the optical sensors detected no ice accumulation or moisture condensation along the glass walls. Water vapor entering the shaft from the surface air was being instantly vaporized and expelled by an invisible, high-frequency acoustic field vibrating at precisely 8.1 Hz, matching the Earth's natural ionospheric Schumann resonance. Suddenly, the vector magnetometer on the probe registered a total collapse of localized spatial metrics. The baseline gravity reading dropped by over 40%, and the atomic clock on the probe began to diverge from the surface master clock, logging a measurable microsecond time lag. As the LiDAR array swept the area ahead, the narrow 12-foot conduit opened up into the vast, cavernous expanse of the central subterranean vault. The spatial map rendered on the command center screens confirmed the muon tomography models with terrifying precision. The camera feed, enhanced through infrared optical sensors, captured the towering silhouette of the central chamber. Suspended in the absolute center of this massive, ceramic-lined void hung the 30-foot metallic ellipsoid, floating completely free in midair. Surrounded by an intense visible distortion field that bent the probe's laser beams like light passing through heavy glass, the zero-mass core hovered silently in the subterranean darkness, executing its unknown operational protocols deep inside the heart of the mountain. The optical confirmation of a massive, metallic ellipsoid hovering in total suspension inside the central vault sent a surge of adrenaline through the command center. For the first time in the history of the investigation, the team was no longer relying on indirect radar traces, mathematical projections, or speculative theories. They were looking at a real-time, high-definition optical data feed of an engineered spatial core suspended in an artificial void deep beneath the Mesa. Inside the trailer, Dr. Travis Taylor, Eric Bard, and property owner Brandon Fugel analyzed the incoming sensor telemetry as the fiber optic probe stabilized its position at the edge of the cavernous vault. The data streaming from the microprobe's vector magnetometer array revealed that the area immediately surrounding the hovering core was completely devoid of measurable magnetic field lines. The background magnetic field of the Earth had been entirely pushed out of the chamber, a classic signature of total magnetic flux expulsion. In advanced condensed matter physics, this complete expulsion of magnetic fields occurs exclusively during the state of room temperature superconductivity. The implication was staggering. The metallic ellipsoid was wrapped in a continuous, zero-resistance electrical field that generated massive, localized gravitational forces while expelling external magnetic interference. Driven to test whether the system was passively operating or actively monitoring its environment, Dr. Taylor authorized a real-time signal injection experiment down the fiber optic link. Using the surface transmitter array, the team broadcast a low-power mathematical sequence, constructed from prime numbers and fundamental cosmic ratios, directly down the vitrified shaft toward the suspended core. The goal was to determine if the 1.6 GHz transmission was an automated diagnostic beacon or a responsive high-throughput communication channel. The moment the prime number sequence reached the edge of the vault, the response from the subterranean core was instantaneous and explosive. The hovering metallic ellipsoid did not move, but the 1.6 GHz signal emanating from its surface spiked to maximum amplitude, completely saturating the spectrum analyzers in the command center. The wave structure altered within microseconds, taking the surface team's prime number broadcast, processing its mathematical logic, and retransmitting the sequence back up the fiber optic line, inverted, phase-locked, and embedded with a complex, high-density secondary data stream. It was an unequivocal, mathematically verified handshake between human scientific instruments and an active, subterranean non-human intelligence network. Simultaneously, spatial monitoring arrays installed across the 512-acre ranch recorded a dramatic physical chain reaction throughout the surrounding stone strata. The 8.1 Hz extremely low-frequency acoustic hum, which had vibrated silently through the bedrock, locked into absolute harmonic resonance with the 1.6 GHz microwave carrier wave. On the surface directly above the Mesa, Portable quantum magnetometers tracked localized magnetic field lines twisting into expanding, concentric rings that radiated outward from the center of the ridge, forming a giant protective field envelope across the entire valley. The visual sensors on the fiber optic probe captured an equally incredible phenomenon inside the vault. As the telemetric handshake stabilized, the dark ceramic walls of the cavern began to glow with a soft, iridescent violet light. The vitrified material, subjected to the high-density electromagnetic feedback loop and harmonic acoustic resonance, was converting internal structural pressure directly into light through large-scale piezoluminescence. The dark, hidden vault beneath the mountain was illuminated from within, revealing intricate geometric patterns fused deep into the ceramic lining of the chamber. The scientific team stood frozen in awe before the glowing monitors. The entity inside the mesa was not a buried relic, an ancient tomb, or a natural geological anomaly. It was a functional, highly responsive, hyper-advanced planetary interface. The telemetric handshake had proven that the system was actively processing data, monitoring its local environment, and communicating through an unbroken digital channel, setting the stage for the team to decipher the true cosmic destination of the signal, streaming out from the heart of the mountain. With the telemetric handshake confirmed, and the subterranean vault glowing with piezoluminescent light, the investigation reached a fever pitch. The complex secondary data stream embedded within the inverted 1.6 GHz signal was no longer an encrypted mystery. Supercomputers inside the command center worked continuously to decode the high-density binary sequences, organizing billions of data points into visual structural models that illuminated the true scope of the Mesa's subterranean architecture. What the computational algorithms revealed shifted the narrative from a localized Utah anomaly to a global scientific reality. The 12-foot vitrified conduits branching off from the central vault were not isolated tunnels ending within the boundaries of Skinwalker Ranch. The spatial network traced by the supercomputer mapped these smooth, ceramic-lined pathways extending miles outward beneath the Uinta Basin, aligning precisely with major deep-seated tectonic fault lines. The mesa was serving as the primary surface junction, a master control node connected to an interconnected subterranean network running far beneath the continental crust. As Dr. Travis Taylor and Eric Bard analyzed the decoded data packets, they made a discovery that sent a chill through every engineer in the room. The baseline 1.6 GHz signal, continuously modulated by the zero-mass core, carried embedded spatial vectors and precise astronomical reference points. When cross-referenced against orbital mechanics and stellar positioning models, the coordinate arrays did not point to random locations in space. They mapped directly to specific deep space Lagrange points within our solar system, as well as precise galactic vectors aligned with distant planetary systems. The machine concealed within the mesa was not just monitoring the Earth's local tectonic and magnetic environment. It was actively broadcasting real-time planetary metrics directly into deep space. Simultaneously, atmospheric monitoring equipment deployed across the property registered a dramatic visual phenomenon directly above the ridge. The vertical column of ionized energy rising from the central vault breached the upper atmosphere, 5,000 feet above the ranch floor. Inside the famous triangle sector, the night sky appeared to flex and distort, creating a clear circular, optical lens through which distant star fields were visibly magnified and shifted. The spatial warping observed above the valley was the direct external manifestation of the gravitational engine operating inside the mountain. The suspended metallic ellipsoid was executing a continuous high-density energy loop, using the planet's natural electromagnetic field, converting structural pressure into coherent radiation, and maintaining an active communications link across light-years of space. Decades of fleeting legends, mysterious lights, and unexplainable radiation events were finally unified under a single, rigorous scientific framework. Standing inside the command center, surrounded by screens displaying deep space vectors and real-time vault telemetry, the scientific team understood that humanity had crossed an irreversible threshold. The mesa was not a quiet geological formation in the Utah desert. It was an active, ancient planetary node, an interstellar gateway built with technology that bypassed modern physics. And as the secondary data pipeline continued to download its spatial atlas, the team prepared to confront the ultimate revelation embedded within the core's final transmission. The decoding of the deep space spatial atlas embedded within the core's transmission brings this extraordinary scientific journey to its ultimate, mind-bending climax. What began for generations as local desert folklore, whispers of phantom lights, sudden localized radiation bursts, and an invisible force guarding the Uinta Basin, has officially been transformed into an empirically verified, fully documented scientific reality. Skinwalker Ranch is not merely a hotspot for strange atmospheric glitches or unexplained regional phenomena. It is the primary surface interface for an active, hyper-advanced planetary installation embedded deep within the bedrock of North America. Unsealing the vitrified conduit, breaching the stone casing, and establishing a real-time telemetric handshake with the hovering sphere did far more than solve a localized Utah mystery. It shattered our fundamental understanding of modern physics, opening a door into the broader cosmic reality that can never be closed again. The staggering empirical data gathered during this landmark investigation establishes three ground-shattering truths that redefine our place in the universe: an engineered subterranean vault, the 12-foot vitrified conduits, localized sub-zero thermodynamic sinks, total magnetic flux expulsion, and the suspended 30-foot zero-mass core confirm the existence of a room-temperature, superconducting installation concealed inside the mountain. A planet-wide tectonic grid, secondary ceramic-lined channels running along major fault lines, synchronized with matching 8.1 Hz harmonic pulses, prove that the Mesa houses the master junction for an interconnected planetary monitoring network. An active cosmic gateway, the real-time phase-locked response to surface mathematical probes via the 1.6 GHz signal demonstrates that the installation is an intelligent, fully operational engine actively transmitting telemetry to deep space coordinates. We are standing on the precipice of a monumental shift in human history. The core questions surrounding Skinwalker Ranch have permanently evolved from asking whether these phenomena exist to deciphering who constructed this incredible subterranean network, how many millennia it has operated silently beneath our feet, and what will happen as its deep space relay reaches full operational capacity. The ultimate answers to spatial physics, advanced energy manipulation, and our true cosmic context are no longer hidden among distant, unreachable star systems. They are waiting for us right now, pulsing inside the heart of the mountain. If this deep dive into the secrets hidden within the Mesa expanded your understanding of the unknown, hit the like button to support ongoing scientific investigation. Subscribe to the channel and turn on all notifications so you never miss a deep dive documentary unraveling the world's greatest unexplained mysteries. Now we turn it over to you. What do you believe is the ultimate purpose of the subterranean engine beneath Skinwalker Ranch? Is it an ancient defense shield, a planetary monitoring node, or an interstellar gateway waiting for humanity to unlock its full potential? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and thank you for watching.